Well, we're back again with yet another No Fluff analysis, and this time we're going to be talking about the Gala Dragalia Remix Summon Showcase running from the 14th of January to the 18th of January UTC. Please note that the adventurers added in this showcase are not limited, and you may want to save your Wormite for the upcoming Persona 5 Strikers collab. With that said, let's cut the fluff and get straight to it, starting with the first adventurer, the 5-star Flame Lance, Kimono Elisanne, the Crimson Paladin. Her first skill is Lady Nonpareil. By tapping multiple times, this grants the team the New Year's Prayer buff, a 3-level buff. At max level, it grants 40% strength and 15% wind res for 60 seconds, decaying to 25% strength for 30 seconds and 15% strength for 15 seconds if the timer runs out. This buff can be topped up to restore the more powerful effects. Kimono Elisanne's second skill is Lucky Day, dealing 609% damage to a target and nearby enemies, inflicting Scorch Rend with a 40% chance, and lowers their Scorch Rend resistance by 10% for 30 seconds. The resistance reduction effect does not stack, and the skill is shareable for 6 skill share points. Kimono Elisanne has the hit point on revival plus 30% co-ability, and her chain co-ability grants flame units combo equals critical rate, increasing critical rate by 1% for every 10 hit combo to a cap of 20% critical rate. The effect is immediately lost if the combo counter resets. Kimono Elisanne's first ability is Good Tidings, which increases Kimono Elisanne's skill gauge fill rate by up to 10% based on her New Year's Prayer buff level, as well as gradually filling the skill gauge of Lucky Day if her buff level is at level 3. She also has Sleep Resist, and her final ability is 100% skill prep. Overall, I find her kit a bit odd. The choice to limit Kimono Elisanne's buffs to this multi-level style buff means that she's stuck at plus 40% strength, which is easily outstripped by Emma or even Halloween Lowen if your team is abusing strength double buffs. Adding 15% wind res gives Elisanne a slight defensive niche, as this should be multiplicative with defense buffs. However, as with all defensive abilities, you have to take considerable amounts of damage over the course of the fight for there to be a tangible benefit. For example, taking 850 damage instead of 1000 is unlikely to change the course of a fight, depending on how healing is handled and future sources of damage. Fights with a lot of unavoidable damage like Legend Folk might see some use with this, however, as reducing the damage taken overall can make things slightly easier on healers, given that handling Plague may mean holding off on heals during certain moments of the fight. In the end, this will have to come down to experimentation and study. From data mines, Elisanne's S2 supposedly only has 40% Scorch Rend affliction rate. This is incredibly low for an affliction and means that Elisanne can't be expected to apply Scorch Rend very often, even against an enemy with 0 resistance. This relegates her to enabling other Scorch Rend appliers such as Seimei and Gala Leonidas. I'm curious to see whether or not this Scorch Rend res reduction enables Scorch Rend against Legend Volk in his Berserk phase, but I suppose with how often he enters and exits Overdrive it might not be all that reliable. Something potentially interesting to look out for anyhow. As for Kimono Elisanne's co-ability, extra hit points on revival, this is unusable in Legend Folk and doesn't really contribute too much outside of it either. It might help you salvage a run after a revive, but otherwise will do nothing to help you clear faster if you aren't dying in the first place. Possibly the most noteworthy part of her kit is Kimono Elisanne's chain co-ability. Combo equals critical rate has the highest critical rate potential out of Flame's chain co-abilities, the next one being Serena with 10 hits equals 12% critical rate. Kimono Elisanne's chain co-ability beats Serena's at 130 combo and above, but bear in mind that that could be very difficult to reach and maintain for many adventurers. In summary, Kimono Elisanne might be worth using for her chain co-ability alone to replace Serena, but this is reliant on being able to reach and maintain 130 combo or above. Another thing to consider, which was brought up on stream by viewer Angie Time, is whether or not each of the 1% critical rate buffs count as different buffs for bonuses to Karuna and Xander skill shares. If so, there could be some potential for a new strategy. In Quest, however, I don't think Kimono Elisanne adds too much to the Flame roster outside of prolonging Scorch Rend for other adventurers, as overall her buffing and damage potential is limited. Next along on the showcase we have the 5-star Wind Axe, Kimono Luca, the New Year's Prankster. Kimono Luca is slightly complicated, so let's start with his first ability, Pounder of Mochi. Kimono Luca gets a unique repeating force strike that reduces the strength of enemies hit by 2% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 4 times. For every 9 hits of this force strike or Splendid Spring, Kimono Luca's first skill, this grants Luca the Mochi Master buff, stacking up to 3 times. This unique force strike hits about 90% harder than the standard Axe force strike and generates 60% more SP per hit as well. As mentioned, Kimono Luca's first skill is Splendid Spring, which deals up to 4,698% damage over 9 hits to surrounding enemies and dispels a buff. Getting 9 hits requires tapping the screen for extra hits, up to a maximum of 6 extra hits. This skill is also shareable for 6 skill share points. Kimono Luca's second skill is Bright Equinox, which consumes stacks of Mochi Master to grant increasing health regeneration and water resist buffs, capping at a 21% potency heal every 3 seconds and 15% water res for 60 seconds. Kimono Luca has the standard Axe defense co-ability, and his chain co-ability grants wind units 10% water resist at 10 combo or higher. Kimono Luca also has full freeze resist, and his final ability is 20% force strike attack rate. Overall, Kimono Luca brings a heavy hitting S1 and some defensive utility on his S2. Kimono Luca's skill setup reminds me somewhat of Ramona. However, Ramona also has some slightly more offensively tuned abilities. Luca's S2 defensive buffs can somewhat assist with healing in co-op fights, but given that Kimono Luca doesn't have a spammable defense buff to trigger double buffs like Templar Hope, I don't think Kimono Luca will end up supplanting Templar Hope's role in Master Ciela fights. However, Kimono Luca's long animation time for his S1 can be considered a liability despite its massive amount of damage. Trying to use all the hits against Ciela at the wrong time will lead you getting wiped out by Flood of Despair, bolts from above, or simply getting the skill interrupted by a room-wide clap. It has great damage potential, but I don't think it'll be simple to use this whenever it's available. Strangely enough, the gameplay preview for Kimono Luca shown on the Twitter post on the Dragalia Lost app feed doesn't show that it's a repeatable force strike. But with its additional power and SP generation of the standard Axe force strike, it's looking like Kimono Luca could benefit from force strike oriented setups. One thing I haven't really touched on is Luca's strength debuff on his force strike. Well, given that many Ciela compositions either feature obscene amounts of healing or blow up Ciela before she inflicts much damage, I think it's unlikely to make a large amount of difference to the course of a fight. In summary, I think Kimono Luca's dispel and defensive utility puts him in a similar role to post-Spiral Ranzel. Welcome in most teams, but without Ranzel's life shield or defense buff. All in all, neither of these new Kimono units are must-haves, and they're not limited either. Both of these factors combined means that pulling for these characters is simply a case of how much you like the character design. I'll certainly be saving for the future Persona 5 collab, grateful for the fact that Cygames isn't violently squeezing my wallet with limited units or power creep just before more limited banners show up. Well, I've already seen some pull videos uploaded to YouTube. Whether or not you follow suit is up to you. I'm not your boss, do what you want. As always, thank you very much for watching until the end. Take it easy, stay safe, and I wish you luck in your upcoming polls.